right, it's been a little while since I put up a YouTube video. Sorry about that. Don't really have any excuses. It's just, for those of you who built a van before, you know, at the start of the van, everything is very kind of linear. It's like, you know, I'm going to do the insulation, then I'm going to rough in the wiring, and then I'm going to cut in the window, and then the fan. There's just these like tasks that you start them and finish them basically immediately. But as you get further along in the build and you start actually finishing the wiring and finishing the plumbing and building the cabinets, you have all of these projects going on at the same time. And for me, it makes it kind of hard to film videos because it feels like I'm never finishing anything on the van. Just it's 1,000 projects happening at the same time. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about some of the trim and detail work that I didn't do on my last van that kind of always bugged me a little bit that I made sure to do on this van. So let's roll that intro and we'll see you on the other side. When it comes to trim work on these vans, the first area that always kind of bugged me the most in my last van, and I really had no idea how to fix this, was the area between the headliner above the driver and passenger seat and the sort of corner of the wall. I guess is that the B pillar? I think it's called the B pillar where the seatbelt is. So if you have a cargo van that had the partition wall from Mercedes, one of their Sprinter vans, the partition wall is usually pushed up flush. And obviously when you're building out the van, you take that out. And it left these like gaps or these voids where you could see into the headliner cavity. And it always just kind of annoyed me because it looked super unfinished. And yeah, I don't know. It really just bothered me because of the unfinished nature of it. And I didn't know what to do. But what I did learn after years of being in the van is that if you buy a crew van or a passenger van from Mercedes, which doesn't have the partition wall, it actually comes with these foam blocks from Mercedes that plug those holes, which I don't think those look amazing, but it gave me a starting point, and I was able to take those foam blocks out and sort of shape them a bit better, and then covered them using Duramax, which is that sort of Marathon Tweed fabric I'm using all over the van. And it gives it a super finished, polished, clean kind of look. Another area that always kind of bugged me on the van was, well, there's two spots that I corrected in the new van that one of them didn't bother me in the old van. It's just not nice to have. The other one always bugged me. And that's the area above the sliding door. On my old van, maybe it was my skill set or just knowledge, I didn't know how to make that look any better. I'd seen a few examples of people who had done stuff, but I just didn't really know how they achieved it. But if you look at an unfinished van, you'll see that it has above the sliding door is kind of this like maybe 3-inch tall strip between that's kind of goes from the top of the door to the ceiling. That's kind of hard to finish and make it look nice. But because I was using basically the Duramax for everything else in the van that I wanted to cover up, my dad and I came up with these kind of like L brackets that we made out of some leftover Luan Plywood. We covered that with some of the 1/8 inch upholstery foam, and then what do we do after that? Oh, and then covered it in the Duramax. I think it turned out great. It gives that area a nice clean finish look that always kind of bothered me. And it sort of ties in from the area I was talking about before with the void in the headliner and just finishes that whole sight line across the van. So I'm happy with how that turned out. And then on the bottom of the sliding door in the step, on most vans, it's just kind of like unfinished metal. Not unfinished metal. It's just like the painted metal from Mercedes. And I thought, wouldn't that look kind of nice if it just kind of matched the cabinets in the van? So we actually used some 1/2-inch Baltic birch, some of the high-pressure laminate that I had been using for all of my cabinetry, and made a nice trim detail piece that will go there. I am waiting for a cover piece, like a stair nosing, to kind of cover up all the layers but that will, I think the powder coat actually came in yesterday, so I'm going to drop the powder coat off at the guy that's doing the powder coat for me, and I should be able to finish that whole area up. Another area that kind of always bothered me a little bit was just in my last van. If you remember on the, I'll call it the cooking side or the kitchen side of the van, which was the driver's side, I had a window behind the cooktop, my induction cooktop. It was the middle placement of the 3 placements on the 170 van. And it always kind of bothered me that I never finished the bare metal of the van with anything. And a lot of people leave it exposed, and that's totally fine. And, but I'll jump into the other van and show you what specifically kind of bothered me about it. And if I was to leave the metal exposed again, I would just do things a little bit differently. But in the new van, I had seen some people that actually take the Marathon Tweed or Duramax. I think they're the same thing. In Canada, I was able to easily source a product called Duramax. I'll leave a link down below in the description so you guys can check it out. But this Duramax fabric, it's not quite a 4-way stretch material, but it does have enough flexibility to sort of work its way around the curvature and corners of the van. So when I cut out my windows on the new van, well, just the crew window behind the driver's seat, before I installed the window, I put in the Duramax fabric in place using the spray gun and contact cement. I think it turned out great and just kind of gives it that finished polish. I always use it, I call it the upfitter look. When you look at a DIY van versus an upfitter van, like a professional van, there's these small details that some people might not notice, but once you're kind of in the van space and van community, they become very obvious very quick. So this is kind of one of those like little upfitter nuances that I've noticed. And then kind of the last area on the van for like what I'll call trim work was, I don't know what it's called. Maybe it's the D pillar, or E pillar, F pillar. I'll look it up, but it's the area around the rear doors. So in the Sprinter van, it's got a bunch of holes in it. It's kind of like access points. I think in some vans they have like plastic covers over them. Some vans they don't. But it always looks kind of unfinished unless you do something with it. So in this van, because I had a whole bunch of the Luan Plywood left over from my ceiling panels because the sizes were odd, so I had a bunch of offcuts. I was able to use that and do a bunch of scribing and tracing to make a piece for, both the driver's side and the passenger side and the top piece. It's fastened just using riv nuts. I think they're M6s. M5s would be fine. So there's just riv nuts and then threaded in with M5 or M6 bolts right in to fasten them up. Again, this is kind of the same way I've upholstered everything in the van, from the headliner shelf to the ceiling panels to the wall panel. It's basically all been the same. It's 1/4-inch Luan plywood. Then it is 1/8-inch closed cell upholstery foam covered in the Duramax Tweed fabric. It gives it a nice, clean, finished look, and overall, I'm super happy with how it works. The other thing that's kind of nice when you're using the closed cell foam is anywhere that you have like a cabinet meeting that trim piece, the foam has a bit of give in it because it's it's squishy, it's foam. And so it makes all of your cuts and all your scribes look basically perfect because you can kind of push them into the foam to hide any little imperfections. I'll kind of show you what I mean about that. So yeah, so far those are kind of the sort of trim areas that bug a lot of people in their Sprinter van build and they don't know how to deal with them. If you have any questions specifically on how I dealt with these 4, let me know in the comments below. I'm sure other ones are going to come up as I get further along in the build. There's already one I know I have to deal with that I don't know what I'm going to do there exactly, so that's coming up. And if you made it this far in the video, make sure you click that subscribe button. I think it's here. I think the subscribe, it's been a while since I made a video. Subscribe button here. And again, we do have a full sort of, I've got my van build guide, which is from the first van build. I will be updating that with all the information from the second van build. And we do have a ton of free information on the website. I try to keep up with, weekly blog posts about just kind of van life stuff in general. So make sure you check out the blog, and we'll see you in the next one.